Hello, I'm Natasha Mortensen.
I'm Rebecca Paskiewicz.
And we are part of the Keepin It Rural podcast. And we're super excited to be here with Jill Nathe today. And she is the agriculture superintendent of the Minnesota State Fair.
So she really fits perfectly into what Keepin It Rural is doing.
Yes, absolutely. Our podcast really is all about agriculture and learning, and helping people have the window into kind of rural life and agricultural life. And we're excited to have Jill here today because, number one, the Minnesota State Fair is one of my happiest places to be, and it has been since I was a very small child.
Absolutely. I think we look forward to it every year. Like, we wait 365 days after it ends just to do it again.
Absolutely, and many of us are here for the entire fair, and we love it.
Woohoo.
So first of all, I want you to tell us a little bit about you, how you got this job, and also tell us like what you do. What is your job here? Because you actually work here like all the time.
I sure do, Natasha. Yeah, my name is Jill Nathe. I'm the Deputy General Manager overseeing agriculture and competition at the fair. This will probably be my 30th fair. So I started out in the competition department doing data entry back when all of the entries for the livestock and agriculture came in on paper. Yes, the ancient times. Paper and a check. And just have worked on and off in the competition division ever since and have been in this role for the past 2 years. Yeah, originally from the Twin Cities, married into agriculture. My husband is from a dairy farm in Stearns County. They actually are now at over 150 years. They milk 300 cows. His brother took over the farm, and I think we've got another generation, my nephews, who will be taking it into the next generation. So very excited, yeah. And a sister who worked here at the fair who met her husband in the swine barn, and they're married and live on a farm in South Dakota. So it's fun to have all those different pieces come together for my ag background. And what I do, so in overseeing competition in agriculture, we say we take care of everything that wins a ribbon outside of maybe the talent show and the marching bands. So anything
really,
from creative activities.
And that includes a lot of people over all
Yes.
12 days. Like, some people just see the 4-H side, some people just come for FFA weekend or open class, but anything that wins a ribbon, like, that's a lot of things.
It is a lot of things, exactly. So just the process of taking in those 30,000 entries and organizing all that data and then turning it into results and sharing all that with everybody. And then, of course, the logistics. So one piece is taking in the entries and getting that part organized, and the other piece is then the logistics of when the animals and the exhibits and everybody and the people are all here. We've got kids in the dorms, we've got animals in the barns, we've got jams and jellies and creative activities, so there's a lot happening.
So I'm pretty passionate about livestock. I live on a livestock farm. I love it. I think my kids are here showing beef cattle this weekend. And you know why does this happen? Like, why are people showing livestock at the state fair? What is the history of that? Like, why is that part of this?
Sure. I mean, agriculture is a key pillar to the fair and really why it started. The fair's moved around a little bit in the beginning, but once we settled here, it was really about introducing folks to Minnesota and what it had to offer, and then encouraging people to come here as well as showcase their animals, right? So you had farmers and rural folks coming to the fairgrounds to showcase the best of the best, which is still what we're doing and still celebrating ag in that way. Obviously, we've added a lot more to the fair over the past many years, but a key element is what's happening down here in the livestock complex.
And why do other people find attraction in this area? Because we look out at this sea of people, and this is what people look up on Facebook and Google when they look up the Minnesota State Fair. It's that sea of people, and we're in the heart of the agriculture piece of the fairgrounds. Why are people that are not solely involved in production agriculture drawn to what we're doing here?
Yeah, I think it's that opportunity, right? Like we talked, you said it's a window to agriculture. It's a place of learning. And so it's both youth that are bringing their livestock that are learning and having a learning experience, but it's also everybody else who's coming, whether they're coming from outstate or from right down Como Avenue, right? They're coming here to learn and to experience ag in ways that they can't otherwise. Where else can you go and be up close to some of this cattle and pigs, or watch rabbits be judged, or even see some of the giant pumpkins or anything like that? It encompasses so much, but obviously the livestock piece is a piece we're all up here really passionate about because it's so important.
How many years have you worked here?
So I've been here for 30 years.
So what have been your jobs that you've had until now?
Yeah, like I said, when I started, I was just an entry assistant and did a lot of data entry, and then kind of progressed up and did a lot of information systems management. Was here full-time for a few years, came back part-time for a while, came back full-time. The fair gets into you. I think you guys could speak to that too. You develop the love, the passion, the bug, whatever you want to call it. You just can't let it go. And then I think I've always really enjoyed the fact that working for the fair, every year we get a chance to do it better. Every year we get 12 days to do it, but then when it's done, it's okay, this was great, this was great, this was not as great. We can come back and make it better next year. And that chance to continuously improve and offer more both to exhibitors as well as fair guests.
Have there been any of those improvements that stand out to you over your 30 years here?
I mean, some are just technology, right? We've gone from, like I said, paper entries and checks and retyping everything to now everyone just enters everything online and it's here instantly. Something that we're doing that we're really proud of is we're live streaming a lot of our agriculture competitions. So now anybody in the state, well, in the world for that matter, I believe last year there was a grandma in Canada who called up and said, how do I get that live stream? I need to watch my grandson's pig. So right, all over the world who can now watch that with that amazing technology to showcase, again, not just here, but anywhere what's happening at the fairgrounds.
So if you had to describe these families you work with, these families that come here with these animals off their farm and the family dynamic of the show world and watching it for so long, like what are those things that just stick with you about it? Like why do you stay around here? Because it's stressful what you do. I mean, I know because I'm on the other side of it watching. So why do you stay? What makes you love it?
It's the people. It really is. And it's everything. It's watching these kids have these experiences. Just this morning, there was a gentleman who's just so excited about his grandson. I mean, he was almost in tears, just thrilled that his kid is having that opportunity to be here and experience that. For so many families, this is their vacation, right? If you're on a dairy farm like my brother-in-law, you are milking cows twice a day. There's no breaks. You don't get a chance to take a vacation. So for a lot of rural families that are coming in for the 4-H weekend or maybe next weekend for FFA, this is their break, right? This is their chance to be together and to be with other families, right? This is Old Home Week. Some of these exhibitors only see each other these days that they're here. They know of each other, but they're spread out throughout the state. And so you come here and yeah, they're competing and sure you want to win, but it's not as much about that as it is about getting together and making those connections. I mean, the community, right? I would love to write a book called Livestock Love Stories about all the different people we would have met. And for me, I'm gonna jump all over, but in 2020, not having a fair, I think that was the hardest part. Like, I have heard so many amazing stories of 4-H'ers that met in the barn over their show box or coincidentally from this to this or saw, and to know that there was a year where we couldn't make that happen, just heartbreaking because you don't know what was lost when we couldn't have those connections that time.
Yeah, and I think it becomes part of your inner purpose when you're in the position that you are. That's a big deal for you. It's 12 days of the fair, but it's so much more than that for you. It's a full-time job, and your entire heart is invested in that. And we talk about COVID all the time, and we try not to bring it up too much, but can you tell us, is there anything that stood out to you or a takeaway from that? Because really, COVID is the second reason that we've ever canceled the state fair. And that's a big stinking deal in our state for having one of the best state fairs, if not, I think it's the best.
What I took away from it, I think what we're talking about, right? What were those losses? What were the things that couldn't happen because we didn't have a fair? You tried to do what you could, but an online experience is not the same. Thank goodness everyone is here right now this week. We're loving it. We appreciate everybody's support and coming back now that they feel comfortable being here. It's really amazing to see the crowds. I'm just looking at them right now. It's just wonderful.
Okay, so I love the draft horses, and I know that you do that too. So you're like in charge of the horse land. And I know people love the horses and watching. So can you tell us some of the horse things that are happening here at the fair? Because I think a lot of people maybe don't see it. Like I love the draft horses and the wagons and all this stuff, and they bring them in the Coliseum. But what are the things you can go watch for horses here?
Right, absolutely, Natasha. So this weekend it is the draft horses. That's who we're focused on. We've got those heavy horses. They're in the Coliseum. This morning they had a halter show down in Compiègne. So those are folks from around the country and Canada who are showcasing, again, their incredible, majestic animals and what they can do and what they've trained for. Now they're going to go home Monday night, and then we're going to take a day to clean the barn and get things organized. And then coming up next week, we'll bring in some miniature horses, the little shorties, and then we'll bring in some walking horses, some very beautiful, they have a very precise way of moving moving. They're called walking horses or Tennessee walking horses, as well as then the sort of the Western type when you think of Western. So we'll bring in like paints, pintos, and they'll compete in pleasure classes under the auspices of the Western Saddle Club Association, and that'll be those middle days, and then some of those horses will go home, but some will stay, and then over the weekend we'll do what we like to call the speed events. So it's not rodeo, but it's that kind of thing, barrel racing, the poles, the sort of fun, exciting, get your adrenaline rushing events where they're racing through the Coliseum as fast as they can.
And we look at the state fair, and it doesn't matter if you come on day 1, day 7, or day 12, there's always something going on livestock related. And I think that's one of the special things about our fair, especially being an avid fair goer who's here for not just 12, but sometimes 14 days to prep and get ready for the fair. And so there's also unique things happening too. We know that the Egg Hort building is celebrating 75 years, but there's also a bee exhibit in there. Can you tell us a little bit more about what we can see in the Egg Horticulture building?
Sure, yeah. Bee and Honey is one of several departments that's housed in the Egg Hort building, and they've got some great stuff. They've got an observation hive. You can buy all sorts of honey ice cream, and then there's photography of bees. There's the honey itself. I'm trying to think, there's a couple other competitions in there where you can see what Minnesotans are doing with honey and honey-related products. And then just that education too. And I think at one point the U of M comes over and does a bee beard. They have someone who lets the bees cover them. It's very cool.
I'm a hobby beekeeper and very jealous of the people who just do the bee suits and their whole body is covered in bees. I will not do that. That frightens me. But thank goodness for brave humans. Also up there you have a lot of other types of agriculture. Apples and wine is a really big thing in Minnesota. Beer is a really big thing in Minnesota. And all of those things are from agriculture. I mean, all alcohol is from agriculture, right? So I think that's a really interesting thing too that people maybe don't realize. So what kinds of things are located in the Egg Hort building that can help people learn a little bit more about those types of commodities?
Yeah, exactly. Right. We've got the vegetable competitions, and every couple days we bring in some different vegetables, and some are those largest, but some are just your average tomato or your average cucumber, and just looking at what those judges are looking for, what makes a nice specimen. Then, of course, we have the grains, the crops that are there. So we have the FFA crops competition, the open class crops competition, where you can see then, here's what those look like that then grow to become these products. Let's see, we've got the vegetables, the fruit, the wine, the Christmas trees. That's again another Minnesota industry where they're growing Christmas trees. I'm sure I'm forgetting something.
There's so many things in there. Yeah, there really are. And there's something for everyone in there. But one thing I noticed, and I heard a couple talking about it when I walked through there yesterday, is that they said, you know what, we could do that in our apartment. We could do that at home. And it's things that are applicable that might not be applicable in the livestock barn. Not everyone can go home and milk a cow. Not everyone can raise a feeder steer or a show pig. But they can have rooftop gardens. They can have these herbs growing in their kitchen. They can do these things. And I think it makes agriculture so much more attainable. Yeah. And that's one of the achievements throughout 75 years.
There's so many educational opportunities in there, both the folks that are demonstrating and showing. We've got the dirt, where you can listen to master gardeners talk about all kinds of different things, the straw bale gardening. So there's so much there where you can, take it home and apply it.
So my daughter is receiving a Purple Ribbon Scholarship today. And I know that that's part of the agriculture here too. And it's funny because people may walk around and see the ag, but there's all these things that happen behind the scenes too that maybe not everybody's aware of. So a lot of the students exhibiting here can apply for scholarships. And my daughter is a diehard, my son is as well, just like me. We love the state fair. She took her senior photos here last year. I mean, we just love it. So tell us more about those supportive things that are happening for these kids that are here and they spend a lot of years here.
Absolutely. We also want to celebrate them and support them as they start to move on from some of their programs. We want them to hopefully stay involved in ag in one way or another. And part of how we encourage that is we have the Minnesota State Fair Scholarship, and that goes to kids that are either involved in an ag program or from outstate Minnesota. And I think we awarded 22 of those this year, 24
That's
of those
awesome.
this year. And then another group that's here, the Minnesota Livestock Breeders Association, that's putting on the auction tonight. They are awarding, I believe, 53 scholarships this year to kids. A new program that we just started 2 years ago was something on the opposite of that. So those two programs are for kids headed for secondary education to help fund that. Now, we started a program that we call the Bell Grant, and it stands for the Beginning Exhibitor Livestock Learning Experience. And what we have is young kids who are ready to make the state fair part of their tradition, and maybe they need a little financial help to get here. It's not cheap, gas prices, food prices, just to feed your animal for the summer, right? To take care of them and to show them maybe at county fair or a jackpot show. All of that adds up. So what we've done is created a program where kids can apply in the spring and be accepted into the program, and then they just send in a few reports over the summer, real simple, just a picture and some words about their progress with their show animal, and then when they exhibit at state fair, after the fair they'll get a check for $500 or $250 to help cover those costs. I'm going to say one more thing. The other part we love about that program is it's a mentorship program. So it's not just, boom, here's some money because you took care of your animal. They are partnered with a mentor who's older, who's been to the fair before, who can text with them and answer their questions. What do I pack? Or how does this work at weigh-in? And usually it's someone with their same species, so they've got experience. And those mentors, some of those, it's about connection again. Here I am. It's about connection because some of those are going to be lifelong friends. We've had such great stories of mentors who showed up to cheer on their mentee at their county fair, or they're all here this weekend and they're watching each other's show and they're sharing tips on showmanship. And that to me is another just beautiful outreach that the fair can help support.
And to speak off of that, that's exactly what I was going to mention too. I actually have an FFA member in my chapter who signed up to be a mentor in the Bell program, and she was so excited about it. It's the Rabbit Project, and so she traveled to Stevens County to help this girl start a rabbit project, and since then they have texted nonstop, and it's all the things that you don't necessarily want to ask your 4-H extension agent. It's all the things that you don't feel comfortable asking someone that's not just an older kid in the project. And she said that it's been really cool to be able to send pictures back and forth and explain not just, this is how you show a rabbit, but this is the knowledge you're gonna need to know for your interview. This is who you need to talk to and make connections with at the state fair. And I look at all three of us up here, the reason we're here is because of mentorships. And I think it's pivotal, and that Bell Grant is doing exactly what the state fair has set out to do for years.
Yeah, and to create these relationships as they move forward. These same kids, they're going to be that banker in that small town. They're going to run that auto mechanic shop. They're going to be selling seed. These connections that they're making are only going to serve them as they continue to grow, develop their careers and their lives. So they don't have to marry each other. They can just be friends.
So we're sitting here at the Christensen Farm stage outside the CHS Miracle of Birth Center. This exhibit is fantastic. It really allows people to learn more about actual farm life and what's happening there. But we are also celebrating 75 years of FFA here at the Minnesota State Fair, which is awesome. And we have lots of things that are going to be happening to celebrate this next weekend during FFA week. We also have our FFA Foundation Telethon tomorrow night. But what is happening to celebrate FFA here this year at the Minnesota State Fair?
Yeah, the FFA group has put together some great opportunities to celebrate FFA's 75 years of shows at the fair. So I believe on Friday night there'll be some activities down in front of Compier, some folks there to celebrate and proclaim this opening weekend of FFA at the fair for 75 years. We'll have hopefully a lot of FFA members in attendance, get a big photo, and then the following night a really cool event I believe is being held here on Saturday night, celebrating legacy families and advisors that have been part of this program for so long and given so much. Advisors, sure, they're teachers, but we know they put so much more into it, time-wise, blood, sweat, and tears-wise, energy-wise. So a chance to celebrate families that have been participating in FFA at the fair for generations, as well as some of these key folks that have really helped grow that FFA program. We are one of the largest livestock FFA shows in the nation.
And we've seen that in the successes that happen from generation to generation, which is actually an award I think they're trying to give next weekend to the families that have those multi-generation experiences because of FFA and State Fair's bond. And I met with one of them this morning, and 3 of their direct family members were Baldwin winners. But if you go out the next generation of their family, or the next extension of their family, 9 total were Baldwin winners, which is a big award. It's the largest award that FFA gives here at the State Fair, and how cool that was an opportunity and an honor that they have. We hear about the Princess K program and how, well, this family has 7 Butterheads in their family, and my family has 4 in our family. And so it's fun to see the same excitement over FFA and that Baldwin Award too.
Agreed, a very prestigious award.
Now, I want to tell this story because it's funny. TJ Brown, who's the FFA superintendent here at the Minnesota State Fair. So TJ had written a quote for the Baldwin Award, and if you're a high school football fan, this is about TJ. This is the dedication of ag teachers A lot of these kids that you see at the Minnesota State Fair, they are missing practice for all their fall sports because they're here. And they have chosen to do that, and coaches are not always super happy about this. However, Mr. Apple, who was TJ's FFA advisor, would make them run up the hill by the billboard with the cows up there until they would pass out like of exhaustion. And then they would go home after, and they would be like here late and doing that and up early, and they'd get back to football, and the coach couldn't believe how good a shape they were in. So a lot of ag teachers go above and beyond to make sure these kids get to come here, but still can go home and be good football players apparently. If you see any volleyball kids taking digs or something out there, like that's what's happening. They're practicing. So I really want to know, what are the categories of superintendents? Because I think that's interesting. Like, what other people make all this happen? I mean, Jerry Hammer's like in charge of this whole show, right? But then what are the other kind of departments?
Sure. So there's about 80 full-time employees at the State Fair. So yes, Jerry is our leader. And then next there's the level of senior management, and then there's many more managers over various departments. So that can be anything from entertainment to transportation to operations to sanitation, and it all doesn't it? Competition. So all those areas have that sort of a management level as well as another level of staff. So yeah, about 80 of us that are here year-round, and then of course come fair time we grow to about 3,000, and that's just paid employee. When you think about FFA and 4-H and some of these other, the DNR, so many of our partner agencies are bringing in volunteers and other folks that are helping to make the programming and the experience here what it is.
And most of those employees are just for these 12 days, or a little bit before, maybe a little bit after.
Yep, so when we get to that 3,000, a lot of them are, we like to call 12-day wonders.
Natasha, that's us. Woo! But what about you, Jill? What do you do the rest of the year?
Oh gosh, yes, we are here all year. Surprise, surprise. We don't just show up in August and say, heck, we'll put this together.
This all happens magically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, some things you do have to plan well in advance. Maintenance and things that happen with buildings, you have to plan farther in advance, even to just budget for them. But then to know, if you want to break ground on something, we got to be doing it September 6th if we're going to be ready for that next fair. We only have that year to get ready. Yeah, so after fair, we'll do a lot of post-fair analysis. One of the jobs of my department is we issue the premium checks. So in the month of September, we issue about 6,000 checks for over $1 million in prize money. So there's a project right there.
I couldn't imagine what that was like before it was digital. When you said you were doing data entry by paper.
Oh yeah,
and pen.
they were hand securing checks. We were running them through on a dot matrix printer. Yeah, it was good times. We did not want to mess up.
But as a former 4-H member, I will tell you, and my sister can confirm, that's what we lived off of until Christmas time. Like, we lived off of those premium checks.
Yep, they don't make up for everything, but it is real nice to get that check come later in September. So that's one of our processes, and of course there's just a lot of planning, a lot of budgeting over the winter. Our annual meeting for the State Agriculture Society is in January, and that's where we approve those budgets, meet with our fair board and say, okay, here we go, here's the plan for the next year, and then we got to execute. So we're doing things like hiring judges, writing those kind of contracts, sign orders. I'm trying to think of all the things we have to do over the winter. Premium books, we have to double check those rules, update dates. But we're in consultation with a lot of other people. So like you said, we've got our sort of managers and supervisors, etc. on staff, but then we have a lot of what we would call superintendents who are sometimes a 4-day wonder, sometimes an 18-day wonder, who are our experts out in the field who help us know, oh, you don't need that pairs class in the SLAM show, or maybe we're going to add another category in creative activities. So we're working with those folks to tweak, and like I said, always improve. Always be, where is the industry at? What do we need to be doing to be relevant, to be current, and to be enjoyable for fair guests and for our exhibitors?
Now, you mentioned that you hire judges. So Natasha and I really are curious if you have like a food eating judging contest that needs to happen. Can we, we will volunteer. If we need to eat any baked goods or anything.
Okay, all right. We'll keep you guys in mind.
We are all about keeping it rural, Becca and I, and Lindsay's not here today, but she is too. So, Jill, how do you keep it rural?
That's a good question. How do I keep it rural? This, again, I feel like you said, my energy all year goes into the idea of how are we going to do this? How are we going to get animals in and out? How are we going to get people in and out? As much as I am not on a farm myself, I really do enjoy those trips to my sisters, to my brother-in-laws. That's where we really do enjoy spending time and enjoying that sort of lifestyle, right? And being part of that and celebrating the family, whether it's picking rocks or trying to just help out where we can, drive a tractor or something like that. But no, for sure, just keeping it rural here at the fair. Make sure that the fair remains true to its agricultural society roots. I think maybe that's the biggest thing I need to do in this role, is keep advocating for ag at the fair, make sure it stays just as important and just as special as it has for the past many, many years.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it makes my heart happy to know that there are people like you dedicated to do that. So thank you for what you do at the fair.
Oh, thank you guys. We can't do it without all of you.
Yeah, and Natasha and I had this brainchild to do this podcast about a year ago at the state fair. And we were wondering, because we had a blank slot on the stage, and we're like, we should just get up there and talk. We should do this. And we should like bring someone in. And then about 2 or 3 weeks after the fair, we talked again, and all of a sudden this thing started to happen, and we're doing this podcast. And so to have you on stage with a live podcast at the state fair has been a dream come true, really, at this point. So thank you for being our first guest on Keepin' It Rural live at the state fair.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Let's give a hand for Jill. That's all from Keepin' It Rural.
It's not a party without you there. Follow our crazy on Facebook and Instagram, and be sure to check out all episodes and extras at keepinitruralgirls.com.
Until next time, keep it rural.
It's time to pour on the fire and call in the dogs. That's all, folks.